The United States will provide Ukraine with intelligence for strikes against the Russian Federation using long-range missiles and will also allow Kyiv to attack energy infrastructure deep within Russian territory. In addition, the possibility of sending weapons to Ukraine that would enable it to hit more Russian targets is being considered. This is reported by The Telegraph. The US is also asking its NATO allies to provide similar support. It is reported that Ukraine has benefited from American intelligence throughout the war. However, Kyiv has requested additional assistance for strikes on Russian oil refineries, pipelines and power plants in order to deprive the Kremlin of vital revenue and oil. US President Donald Trump, in turn, is urging European countries to stop purchasing Russian oil in exchange for his agreement to impose tough sanctions against Moscow. According to American officials, the approval to share intelligence occurred shortly before Trump suggested that Ukraine could reclaim all territories occupied by Russia. The American president wrote this after meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. After seeing the economic problems that the war is causing in Russia, I believe that Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position where it can fight and win, returning all of Ukraine to its original borders. The US is also considering Ukraine's request for additional military aid, including Tomahawk missiles with a range of 2,500 kilometers, which are capable of reaching Moscow and a significant part of western Russia. For the first time, the US will provide assistance for Ukrainian long-range missile strikes on energy targets deep inside Russian territory, writes The Telegraph. After all, revenues from the energy sector remain the Kremlin's main source of funds for financing military operations.
Europe has united against Russia. French special forces seized a Russian oil tanker off the coast of France. It was allegedly used to launch drones over Europe. The vessel, which was part of Russia's shadow fleet circumventing sanctions by selling Russian oil, is suspected of having been used as a platform for launching drones near Denmark between September 22nd and 25th, when unidentified UAVs were flying over Copenhagen airport. At the same time, an F-35A of the Royal Netherlands Air Force with the tail number F-027 confirmed the first destruction of a Russian drone, according to the Netherlands Ministry of Defense. The incident occurred during a combat sortie over Polish territory when Russian drones posed a serious threat to the country's airspace. A kill mark was added to the fuselage of the fighter jet, symbolizing the successful destruction of the target. Meanwhile, the European Union is changing its approach to sanctions policy against Russia. Instead of gradual restrictions, more radical measures are being prepared. This was announced by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen after the informal EU leaders summit in Copenhagen. It is time to further increase the pressure on Russia. We are no longer proposing phased sanctions, but are offering significantly tougher measures in energy, financial services, and trade. And all of this is already included in the 19th package of sanctions, which is currently under discussion. According to von der Leyen, the package was developed in coordination with the United States. It is planned to be adopted in the near future. Among the key points are lowering the price cap on Russian oil to $47.60 per barrel, restrictions on the operation of the Mir payment system, and a ban on the export of certain ores, metals, chemicals, and salts. There are also sanctions against 45 Russian and foreign companies cooperating with Russia's military sector. Ukraine may launch a major attack on the currently occupied Crimea before winter, reports Sky News. Citing military analyst Michael Clark, the publication writes that this could be, for example, a naval landing or an airstrike on the Crimean bridge to confuse the Russians. Clark notes that given how deeply Ukraine can now strike into Russian territory, an attack on the strategically important Crimean bridge cannot be entirely ruled out.
Ukrainians love to spring surprises. They know that this affects not only the Russians on the front lines, but also the West's perception of how things are going in Ukraine.
And the increased strikes on air defense facilities in temporarily occupied Crimea may indicate possible attacks on the peninsula. Ukraine is doing this deliberately. Such strikes serve several important purposes, said a serviceman of the Territorial Defense Forces. Military expert Alexander Musienko writes this for Union, citing Radio NV. According to him, work is underway to demilitarize the occupied Crimea because Russia needs to be weakened. Also, in the expert's opinion, this leads to a reduction in the enemy's capabilities in the Black Sea, which is a strategic objective for the defense forces. Another task for the armed forces of Ukraine is to increase the capacity to strengthen operations in the Black Sea using both naval and aerial drones. That is why strikes are being carried out on enemy radars and surveillance equipment. Ukraine's defense forces regularly destroy Russian air defense systems, turning the peninsula into a kind of black hole for expensive anti-aircraft systems. Just recently, the primary unit of the main intelligence directorate of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has carried out verified strikes on targets such as a Panzer S-1 SAM system, two S-300 SAM systems, a Tor M2 SAM system, an Obzor 3 radar, an Imbir radar, and two Kasta radars.
Ukraine will find the means and weapons to organize a blackout in Moscow in response to the massive shelling by the aggressor country. This was stated by Major General Andriy Natov, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, in an interview with Ukrinform. According to him, any action by the enemy will be met with a counteraction and will receive a symmetrical response. Natov added that Ukraine is well equipped with weapons, including long-range ones. However, there are currently some issues regarding the quantity of weapons needed for the defense forces to gain an advantage over the enemy. It should be noted that earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Russia would receive a proportional response to its attempts to cause a blackout in Ukraine this winter. According to him, if the aggressor country threatens Kiev with a blackout, then the Kremlin should know that there will be a blackout in Moscow as well. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian leader confirmed that he had recently spoken with US President Donald Trump about the distinct possibility of providing Ukraine with advanced long-range missile systems. The esteemed head of state made this significant statement while speaking with numerous journalists just ahead of the 7th summit of the European political community. He specifically noted that his last conversation with Trump was indeed very good and remarkably productive, and he also confirmed that their discussion specifically included crucial long-range weapon systems. According to Zelensky, there is currently no definitive decision on this particular issue yet. Everything will ultimately depend on the crucial decision of the American leader, Donald Trump. As is known, Ukraine had previously asked the United States to provide Tomahawk cruise missiles. They possess an impressive operational range of 2,500 kilometers and are fully capable of effectively reaching Moscow. According to a detailed report from The Telegraph, the United States government will provide Ukraine with crucial intelligence for precision strikes against Russia, specifically utilizing their advanced long-range missile systems, and will also explicitly allow Kiev to attack vital energy infrastructure located deep within the aggressor country's sovereign territory. There is also serious consideration being given to sending additional advanced weaponry to Ukraine that would allow it to strike an even greater number of significant Russian targets. Former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was taken to the hospital after a probable assassination attempt on his life. According to The Sun, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights stated that Assad was discharged from a hospital on the outskirts of Moscow on September 30th. The observatory reports that the Syrian dictator was poisoned, allegedly in order to accuse the Russian government of being complicit in his death. It is noted that Assad's condition is currently stable. The Sun writes that this is already the second likely attempt to assassinate Bashar Assad in the past 10 months. At the end of last year, the Telegram channel General SVR reported on a possible poisoning of the former president of Syria. At that time, Assad was allegedly treated in his apartment, and tests supposedly confirmed the presence of poison in his body. It should be noted that after fleeing Damascus, Assad has been living in Moscow under the protection of the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. There had been previous reports of assassination attempts on Putin's friends as well. For example, in October of last year, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico stated that there had been a second attempt on his life. According to Fico, the incident took place in the city of Dukla. A man was detained there who allegedly hated the Slovak politician because of his stance on Ukraine. Fico said that the man was found to have a fully loaded pistol. In May of last year, there was an assassination attempt on Prime Minister Robert Fico in Slovakia after an off-site government meeting. At that time, he was hospitalized with multiple gunshot wounds. On October 1st, Vladimir Leontiev, the occupation head of the Council of Deputies of Nova Kakhovka, died in the hospital from his wounds. According to Vladimir Saldo, the occupation governor of the part of Kherson region controlled by the Russian army, Leontiev was wounded on the morning of October 1st during an attack by a Ukrainian Baba Yaga drone.